I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to talk about this week's Parsha, at least one aspect of it, which really occupies the majority part of the Parsha, and that's this week's Parsha is Parsha Korach, and it talks about the rebellion of Korach. Just as a quick capsule, what happened in this Parsha is Korach was upset and revolted against Moses because he didn't receive what he thought was coming to him. He felt that he was entitled to the same as other people who had gotten the work that he wanted to do, and the end was he had 250 followers, and the punishment for them was they were all swallowed alive into the earth. Now, there's a number of questions you can ask about this Parsha. First, about this rebellion. First of all, we're talking about a people, the children of Israel, who just left Egypt a short time ago, witnessed countless miracles of crossing of the sea, getting out of Egypt, the miracle of being fed in the desert, the manna, all these miracles. And how, with all these miracles, can somebody of a stature of Korach, who was not just an ordinary person, he was a very wise person, how could he invoke and provoke such a rebellion? So the topic of today's short talk is unity in opposition. Unity in opposition may not be true unity. You know, we look in the Torah, and the Torah has to give us a message for our own time. There are no coincidences. Nothing happens b'mikra, as we say in Hebrew. Nothing happens by coincidence. And it is interesting that in every parsha that you look at, every part of the Torah you look at, you can find something applicable to your daily life. So we're gonna talk about that before the end of this little talk, as to what the connection might be and what lessons we can learn today. You know, as I've said many times, the Torah is not a storybook. It's a book of learning, of teaching us the way to live as a Jew, to live as a human being. First of all, let's talk about the reason that Korach did this. So the Nativot Shalom, excuse me, the Nativot Shalom says that the rebellion, the dispute, the fighting, the milchama between Korach and Moshe was not just an ordinary fight, but it was a fight against heaven, a fight against God, a fight against the Torah. Why is that? Because machlokas, fighting, is the opposite of shalom. Shalom is one of the names of God. Shalom is what we're taught Shabbos is. Shabbos is shalom. We say Shabbat Shalom. The Torah is shalom. We say Kol derechecha darchei noam v'chol nesivosecha shalom. All your paths are ways of pleasantness, and all your paths are paths of peace. So Korach in this fight was fighting against all of these, and the Nativot Shalom attributes this to his ego. And he says, if anybody who is so egotistical that they're the only thing that matters in the world, they can't look at anybody else, that's the opposite of what you need to serve God. And God says, I cannot dwell in the same place with a haughty person. A haughty person, somebody who gives into his ego, if he sees a friend of his just gets in his way, right away he thinks, oh, Why is he in my way? He must be doing something to harm me. It's all about the I, all about the me, and that was the main problem with Korach. Now it's interesting how this parsha begins. The parsha begins as follows. It says, "Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahas ben Levi." Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahas, the son of Levi, took V'Dasan v'Aviron, and also Dasan and Aviram, b'nei Eliav, the sons of Eliav, On ben Pheles, b'nei Ruvain, and On, the son of Pheles, the sons of Ruvain. Rabbi Twersky, Rabbi Dr. Avram Twersky of blessed memory, had a beautiful Torah on this whole parsha. He says, you look at the first sentence, it's Vayikach, which means singular. Why is it singular? Because it's not just Korach. It's Korach, and it's Dasan and Aviram, and it's On ben Peles. It should be plural. It should be Vayikchu. They took. Then you look at the next sentence. The next sentence is Vayakumu lifnei Moshe. The next sentence is in the plural. They stood up. They stood up against Moshe. And he says, what's the difference between these? And he points out a very interesting lesson. And it's a lesson for our days. He says, initially, when people are joining a group opposed to something, they may each have their own independent philosophies, their own independent ideals, but they are, for the sake of achieving whatever they're opposed to, they abandon those ideals, and they seem to stand as one. But that standing as one, that unity that they seem to have, is short-lived, because bottom line, you have all these people getting together, and they really have nothing in common except the one goal to be united against one thing. In this case, their goal was to be united against Moshe. They had no intention of, if they succeeded, in then just letting Korach be the leader. They were all looking at what was in it for themselves. That was the manifestation of ego. That was the manifestation that Korach had. And it's interesting that the wife of On ben Pheles convinced him not to go through with this. She said, what are you going to accomplish? You're just one of the regular people now. If Korach succeeds in getting what he wants, you'll still be one of the regular people. And the ego of these people was so inflated that they thought they could do it. And they thought that unity would come as a result of their opposition to one particular role. Now, I don't want to talk about politics. It's not the place for it. But in Israel right now, as I'm sure you've read in the news and heard about, we've had a lot of changes in what's happening with our government. And right now, we are about to enter what is called a unity government. The unity government consists of 8 different parties of totally different viewpoints, but they're coming together for one reason. And I just hope and pray that this unity government isn't like the opposition that Korach wanted to mount, and to be united only for one thing, but then to be divided for everything else, and everybody being it for themselves. That's a lesson that applies to our day. And it doesn't apply just here in Israel. It applies anywhere you look. You see people coming together of varying viewpoints only to try to prevent something from happening. They're united for a moment, but then that unity fails. That's what Rabbi Twersky said in this parsha. That's what the Torah is teaching us. Initially, they look like they're standing together, but once they achieve their goal of whatever their goal happens to be, then their own egos take over. And I guess the message that we have from this Torah is, let us realize the importance of humility. Let us not let our egos get the best of us. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbat.